Welcome back, everyone, to the WordCamp LAX live show. I am Joey Dowd, your live show host and wrangler. This is the penultimate episode of the live show. One more set of talks left. Thanks to Cal for your talk on the basics of hosting and Adam for your talk on beignets and WooCommerce. Last few hours to hang out in the Zoom hallway if you want to interact with the speakers and everyone else, and also to hang out on Slack. And lastly, we have one final sponsor minute. So I'm joined by Allie Nimmons from WP Buffs. Hello, Allie.
Hi, Joey. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So kind of real quick, tell us about WP Buffs.
For sure. WP Buffs is, we provide WordPress maintenance services to freelancers, agency owners, business owners, all sorts of companies. And that is really our bread and butter, is just WordPress website maintenance. So you sign on with us and we are your WordPress butlers. We perform updates for you, whether that's content updates or plugin updates. We take backups for you. And we work directly with you on any sort of projects that you might have. Need to build out a new page, need to troubleshoot an issue, need to add a new functionality, like we're there to help you out. And one of the biggest things that we do that we're most proud of is our white label agency program. So if you already provide WordPress maintenance and you are trying to scale or grow that business and you're not particularly looking to hire employees, but would like to just offset a lot of that work to another team, we white label that whole process for you and take all of that energy and work and time off of your plate. So yeah, that's primarily what we do.
That's very cool. So yeah, I guess that's kind of a bit different than, do you do hosting as well? Or is it like, does someone have to have the hosting already set up and then you manage it? Or if someone was like, I don't have anything, can you like set me up from scratch? Is it?
Yeah, we do not provide hosting. They will have to, anyone who comes to us has to have their own hosting set up already. We can definitely give like recommendations of great hosting depending on, the size of your site, what it is that you need it to do, the type of traffic you're getting to it. We can help you kind of diagnose what sort of hosting you need. But yeah, the hosting is definitely on the customer side of things.
Cool. And then once they're set up, you just kind of can take over and manage and do whatever is needed to keep a good site running.
Right.
That's awesome. Do you want to tell us a bit about your WordPress story and your kind of journey into WordPress?
Yeah, sure. So actually, as Joe and I were just chatting about before we went live, I started my journey in theater. I was a theater kid from ages 5 to 22, and I went to Florida State. I majored in theater, the whole thing. And eventually I realized that it just really wasn't for me for a lot of reasons. And I thought to myself, what can I do with my life that will be productive, that will be creative, and that I won't have to be a starving artist, because there's sort of an agreement you make with yourself when you go into theater or the arts that you're not going to make very much money probably. So I asked myself those three things, I remember. And one of the things that I found looking around was web design. And I was like, that sounds really fun. Like the future, right, is through coding and the internet, right? That's what we tell the next generation. Super creative, very collaborative. And I will say, on average, I believe website designers probably make more than actors. So I started teaching myself HTML and CSS out of books from the library. And I wasn't very good at it. I'm not very good coding, but the design aspect of it was amazing to me. And so I started building websites using WordPress, because I realized that with WordPress, I could code as much or as little as I wanted, as long as I had a good theme to work with and a good page builder to work with. I could build almost anything that I could imagine as far as, a brochure site for a business. That's mostly what I created. And so I did that for about 3 years. And yeah, that was really, really gratifying, because I got to help small business owners and I got to help like women-led businesses and things like that. And last year, in the spring of last year, I joined the team at GiveWP, and I did tech support with them for a good long while, and that was incredibly enriching. And through that process, I learned about the WordPress community as a whole, and that there are all of these incredible people who use WordPress, but they don't just use it for themselves, they use it for other people, and they spend their time helping other people and encouraging other people. And I totally just fell in love with the community, the identity that we have as a community. And so through some really happy accidents, I got this role as the community manager at WP Buffs. And so I don't build sites with WordPress anymore, unfortunately. I do miss that. But a large part of my job is to be here and talk to people like you and support events like this, determine what kind of events we support and things like that. So yeah, my journey with WordPress has been, I'm going to learn HTML and CSS out of a library book. I'm going to build sites for people. I'm going to support a global community. So it's been a very, very interesting and fun and gratifying journey overall.
It's a lot of big stepping stones from how-to books to global community. I'm curious, when you did do your work or when you're helping small business owners set up their websites, were there sort of like kind of common struggles or common roadblocks that a lot of like small business owners hit when they were trying to set up their WordPress site? You know, I mean, I don't know if it was just like kind of like just lack of knowing what tools were available, if there were other kind of things you saw that people, business owners struggled with.
I think a lot of business owners struggled with just knowing what the milestones were when you're building a site, right? So knowing that you can't have a website without a hosting and domain name, right? Those are not optional. Mm-hmm. And also cheap hosting is not the same as good hosting, right? Like that is a very important distinction to make, that if you're going to spend money on anything when it comes to your website, spend it on hosting. At least that's what I think. So it was that kind of getting, what do I need to get started? What's in my toolkit for me to get started building a WordPress website? So that was really nice that I was able to kind of clarify a lot of that information for people. And the difference between a pretty website and a good website. So, you know, a lot of people want a website that looks a certain way, right? Like I've worked with companies before who are like, well, I want my website to look like this one. Like I want it to look like Apple's website, or I want it to look like Disney's website. And you have to explain to them that I could make it look exactly like that, but it will not be successful because you do not have the same resources or the same audience as these large giant brands and things like that. So really informing somebody that a website is not just like window dressing for your business. It is an extremely important and potentially complex tool that, used properly, I used to always describe it as like, if you build your website properly, you have built your ideal employee, your ideal sales person for your company. And as long as you take care of that employee and you know, keep them healthy and updated and happy, they will bring you business. But it's not enough that they just look nice. They have to actually be able to work. And so that's I think a huge misconception, that people think, well, if I see a pretty website, I will buy. No, you don't though, right? Like Amazon's website is ugly, in my opinion. That's not a pretty website, but it's like the biggest marketplace in the world. So, you know, what's more important there?
I like that analogy of an employee, because it's, yeah, I guess there might be some mentality of like, I just got to build the website and set it and forget it, and it's like a one-time thing and then it's done. But, you know, an employee is a better analogy, where it's like, yeah, you got to maintain it, you got to develop it, you got to like keep evolving it, just as you would with, you know, employee, to keep progressing and developing people on your team. So, I mean, yeah, it's a part of your team. Do you have any tricks of the trade to share? Our theme is tricks of the trade. So do you have any WordPress tricks of the trade?
Oh, that's tough. I mean,
it is a broad category, so it can also be WordPress related, or even like business related, marketing related, SEO. What else do we have?
I guess the biggest thing that like unlocked WordPress for me was the like adage of, what is it? Measure twice, cut once, right? So I'll say if you're sitting down to build a website with WordPress for the first or 100th time and you're struggling at all, invest more of your time and your energy into planning it, into researching what it is you're actually trying to accomplish, getting into the minds of the people who will be using that website. And I think this is an overall marketing idea too, right? Like doing that research and really making sure that any action you take is completely backed by a reason, right? Like I talked a little bit about my background in theater. One of the things I learned in theater school was there is no right or wrong decision, like as an actor. You make the strongest decision that will communicate to the audience what it is you want them to be feeling. So I could do one of two things on stage. One of them is going to be stronger than the other one at communicating an emotion. And that was the approach I took to designing things and building things is, okay, what's the strongest decision that I could possibly make? And if I don't know anything about my audience, or if I don't know anything about people who are going to be using this tool, then I can't make a strong decision because I have no information. And so I really do think that there is a lot of benefit in planning, researching, talking to people about what it is that they've done, especially in the WordPress community. There's so little competition here that, like, if you're ever afraid to reach out to somebody and ask how they did something or how they would recommend, don't be afraid. Like, everyone is here to help you. So yeah, I think that would be my biggest trick, I suppose, is shifting that mindset into, like, I have to execute, I have to launch, into I have to make the strongest possible decisions that I can in order to save myself time and stress and energy and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great tip. I feel like it's kind of like setting your compass and, kind of figuring out your direction first before you start going down it, and then realize that you, might have been building something that looks pretty, but might be not the best design for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Ali. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your tips. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joey. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. So it's time for our final two talks on track 1. It is still the beginner themed. We have Failure is Not an Option, What Apollo 13 Can Teach Us About Launching Websites. That's from 2 speakers. And on track 2, still e-commerce themed, we have Build E-commerce Sites with Confidence, Demystifying Commerce. That is a wrap for the live show. We will see you back here at 4 for a final wrap up with the entire WordCamp LAX team.